Day 1058 of the Ukrainian War Map, also known as the Russo-Ukrainian War. Juzzie here, and today is another update as I take a simplified and down-to-earth approach to some of the most important happenings on the ground in Ukraine. So starting off, we'll take a look at those Russian losses, as currently Russia sits on more than 814,000 military personnel losses, representing an additional 1,480 losses in the past day. Then as for hardware, 11 tanks, 20 APVs, 40 artillery, and a very respectable 137 soft target vehicles. Then to the map, and starting out in Russia, because Ukraine's revamped 2025 strike campaign continues. As most recently, UAVs have reportedly struck a critical gunpowder factory in Kotovsk of the Tambov Oblast, about 450 kilometers from the Ukrainian border. This facility, a key supplier of the Russian military, was targeted overnight, with locals reporting multiple explosions. Further damage assessments are required, but suffice to say, Ukraine is systematically targeting the very infrastructure that fuels Putin's war machine. Then right next door, and as a follow-up to Ukrainian drones targeting the Rosneft oil depot in Lysky of the Voronezh Oblast, and setting it ablaze from 2 nights ago, which, as of today, continued to burn into the morning. So what a relentless focus on the targeting of oil depots we see here in the most recent of times, with Ukraine seemingly giving oil depots a break for a while just before the last 2 or 3 weeks. But now they're back on the menu. And if I were to list, say, the top 5 sites that the AFU targets, I would say, in no particular order, oil depots, refineries, industrial facilities supporting the military air bases, and ammunition depots. So for now, it looks like oil depots, refineries, and various military facilities are back in hunting season, as Ukraine continues to target key resources supporting Russia's war effort and impose some of the most effective sanctions on Russian oil the best way they know how. Then briefly headed to Moscow, where an unknown individual set fire to 2 relay cabinets on the Yaroslavl railway line. All we know is that authorities are searching for the suspect. Russian state agency RIA writes, but at this late stage, they're looking for a lot of suspects, as this is by no means an isolated incident within Russia these days. Then headed back down the map to a quick take on Kursk, with quite a bit ongoing at the moment. And starting off, the Ukrainian Special Operations Forces, likely backed by the 95th Paratroopers and a Bradley M2, are evidently still in the region clearing houses in Pogrebki. Then to the northeast of this front, in a grim display of misplaced loyalty, a Russian soldier ready to surrender to Ukraine is prevented from doing so by artillery fire from his own side. Then also, in another significant blow to Russian air defenses, reports of an S-400 51P6 launcher has been destroyed in the Kursk region. Now, this marks the first documented loss of an S-400 launcher in this area, but not the first radar or control center. And for this to happen in Kursk underscores a potential shift in the balance of aerial power. It's quite serious. So as Ukraine continues to apply pressure, the loss of such critical assets could force Moscow to rethink its air defense posture, and they will, it's just a matter of time, thereby later on leaving other regions more vulnerable in the process. It's a stark reminder that no system is invincible, especially for a piece of an air defense battery, this launcher here, that was just a few short years ago considered one of the best available globally. And the cost? As an estimation, a single S-400 51P6 launcher could be worth somewhere between 100 and 150 million USD. Then for Kursk, reports of another Russian fab falling in the yard of a policeman in Sergivka. Now, there's no photos for this one, but these are Russian-confirmed reports, as the Russian aviation-launched ordnance keep failing or falling on their own territory, specifically their own controlled territory. Then somewhere in the Kursk, something we no longer see every day, as in this case, a Ukrainian drone destroyed a rare self-propelled mortar, the 2S9 Nona of the Russian Armed Forces. Then headed into the Ukrainian map, into Mikhailivka of Kharkiv, as an AFU device known as the Gromolo 10-inch fiber optic drone struck a Russian tank, showcasing the precision and effectiveness of Ukraine's drone program. Then headed down the map, as in a significant capture, Ukraine's Azov Brigade netted 23 Russian soldiers in the Donetsk-Toretsk area. Some surrendered willingly, others were found hiding. Also for this Toretsk direction, we saw a Russian position hit by an FPV drone from the Curtin Company unit of Ukraine's 28th Mechanized Brigade. And though overall it remains a difficult front for the AFU, the cost continues to remain high for any Russian offensives. Then briefly further down the map, as the 46th Airmobile Brigade's Slimak drone takes out a Russian drone near Kharkova. And then same was the case, but all the way over in Mykolaiv, beyond Kherson's north bank, where this Russian drone was also disrupted from duty. But then south on the map, because in a rare case of accountability, so to speak, and related to a former event in Crimea, an air defense officer of the Russian forces was sentenced to prison for mistakenly shooting down a Russian Mi-8 helicopter, believing it to be an enemy Ukrainian drone. But the thing is, this update reflects more of a case of the incident highlighting serious lapses in Russia's internal defense protocols. Sure, they can make someone accountable, like as was the case here, but the air defense officer was working within a limited information space pertaining to his own defense duties. So the outcome to all of this? Well, really, the problem is not solved, and if anything, it will make Russians think twice before shooting down an aerial object, which might just be of Ukrainian origin. And so to make an example out of a single soldier removes the actual needed accountability away from the systemically flawed Russian military. And as it so happens, this soldier is going to jail, but with a revolving door between jail and joining the army. Literally nothing of value seems to come out of all of this, when you objectively look at the Russian perspective, that is. Then taking a look around on the map, because somewhere in the east, Ukrainian border guards stopped a column of occupiers' equipment. 2 Russian BMPs were destroyed, and at least 1 more was damaged. Then also in the east, 1 less tank on the Russian balance sheet, with this T-80 BVM going down somewhere in the southeast. Also seen here was standard Russian protocol, where the initial hit led to an instant retreat of the Russian tanker personnel. Then also on the map somewhere, another column of destroyed Russian armored vehicles somewhere on the front, getting quite common this type of video these days. Then also in the east, specifically in Donetsk, seen here transport of the Second Army of the world, civilian vehicles, muddy conditions, and a lack of proper military logistics, all contributing to their operational struggles. Then on the map and briefly to the southwest, just beyond Ukraine, because in a historic first, Russia is looking to buy European gas to save its colony of Transnistria. That's right, impressively from the European market, which is the real kicker to the story here, as this internationally unrecognized country, nation, or region is undoubtedly Russian in every way but name. Then headed across to some news for today, with an updated pledge from Germany with upcoming aid to Ukraine, including these 9 Boxer RCT-30 infantry fighting vehicles. First produced in 2009, it's a high-tech armored vehicle that carries soldiers, shoots with a 30mm cannon, and survives rough terrain and explosions. Then to a quick Russian hardware update, as the latest Russian development to protect against Ukrainian drones as it comes to Russian tanks. This one's called the Palm Tree. And it is unfortunate how a 5% bump in protection, maybe that is, comes at the expense of pretty much losing the turret cannon functionality. And yet, in terms of protection, this one might not actually have been so bad against, say, a first-generation AFU FPV and their level of training from their operators at the time. But we're comparatively at the 3rd or 4th generation now. So, well, not to mention the fact that Ukraine pumps out about 2 million FPVs a year now. So where one fails, the next and the next comes to these palm tree-like destinations, ensuring that their mission is accomplished. Then to some more news, because in a new report from the Institute for the Study of War, with analysis suggesting that the Kremlin's decades-long ambition to de facto annex Belarus is nearing fruition, a move that would bolster Russia's military and economic clout in its ongoing geopolitical tussle with Europe and NATO. So Moscow's strategy appears to be leveraging the Union State framework, And that is to say, the deepening of military ties with Belarus, allowing Russia to station as much of its military and equipment in the country that it can, effectively blurring the lines between the two nations' sovereignty, which, as a result, based on this report, compels NATO to reassess the implications of Russia's tightening grip on Belarus and the potential resources it could wield against Ukraine and the West. And it is a reminder of how a couple of years ago there were leaked internal Kremlin documents to suggest that Russia wanted to subsume Belarus by 2030, though it does just depend on how greedy and desperate Moscow becomes before then. And though an event like this would provide an advantage for Russia, it comes at the cost of completely undermining confidence from all of its neighboring allies. You see, all of this backstabbing between autocracies and dictatorships, it's a fundamental flaw in how they operate. It lacks unity, where they can never see outside themselves on this dynamic for the short-sighted, self-destructive path that it is. Then to some more news on a slightly related topic, because Chinese businesses are swooping in to buy distressed Russian assets. Reports reveal a Chinese firm plans to acquire 100% of the Inskaya mine in Russia's Kemerovo region, just as it teeters on the brink of bankruptcy. The new owners have already mapped out coal sales, indicating a swift operational takeover. And so it's a move that could highlight an upcoming or growing trend: China capitalizing on Russia's economic vulnerabilities, turning weakness into opportunity. Now, it reminds me of one of my earlier memes, this one, making more and more sense every day, and is one that I've noticed has gained a bit of traction on the internet as well. Then to some more Russian economy news, as it's been a bad week for Russia because in a bold move, Qatar has announced plans to become the world's largest urea exporter, ramping up production from 6 to 12 million tons per annum by 2030. This new nitrogen fertilizer ambition positions Qatar as a key player in global food security, effectively displacing Russia in the fertilizer market. Then to something lighter, so meet Tamek, the other MVP behind the M777 howitzer in operation by the AFU, and not just supervising as he really finds any excuse to climb all over the towed howitzer. Just lovely. Then headed to a funny to round it all off with today, guys, and a quick funny of a sort, because this one, well, it's a big mystery. As in Russia's Sochi depository center, and acting like an empty suppository, unknown persons stole about 20 to 50 million rubles from the high security vault, and none of the employees seem to know what happened. There was a suggestion to check the video camera recordings, a very logical idea to investigate the theft. However, nope, can't do that either, because the security cameras failed to work on that day. Doesn't exactly inspire confidence in the Russian banking system, where we may more and more likely see Russian banks one way or another cannibalizing themselves of their clients' deposits. Which shouldn't at all be surprising now, given this mafia state-run financial institution. So that's it for today, guys. Thanks again for watching. Please continue to like, comment, subscribe, and I do hope to see all of you guys there in the next one. Cheers!